The hallway was silent, not the heavy, suffocating silence from before, but a different kind, brittle and sharp, as if every sound might shatter the fragile calm. Omar was gone. Somehow, he had disappeared into the night, or maybe he had never been there long enough to matter. But the echo of his voice lingered in the air, twisting with the fear, guilt, and adrenaline that still rattled my nerves. Azim stood across from me, hands loosely in his pockets. The faint shadows from the overhead light softened the hard edges of his face, but his eyes, those intense, searching eyes, still held a weight I couldn't ignore. For the first time, he didn't seem entirely in control. Vulnerability hung around him like smoke, and it was intoxicating and terrifying. I sank onto the edge of the couch, my fingers nervously tracing the armrest. My pulse hadn't slowed since the moment I had unlocked the door. I could feel his gaze on me, silent and patient, waiting for some reaction I wasn't sure I could give. I began, then stopped. Words felt impossible. How could I explain everything I hadn't even fully admitted to myself? How could I explain the secrecy, the hiding, the fear of judgment that had kept me silent for so long? Azim exhaled quietly, the sound almost a sigh. "You don't have to explain it," he said. "Not yet. Just stay." But staying wasn't simple. My mind was a whirlwind of questions, regret, and something I wasn't ready to name. What had we just crossed? And what did it mean for us, now that boundaries had blurred and truths were partially revealed, yet still incomplete? We sat in that tension-filled silence for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Every small noise, the hum of the fridge, the distant car horn outside, the faint rustle of leaves, was amplified in the quiet. Every second dragged like a warning. The night wasn't over, and neither were the consequences. Finally, Azim spoke again, his voice low and deliberate. "I shouldn't have come here without warning. I know that. But I needed to see you, to make sure you're okay." His words made something inside me clench and then ache. Because deep down, I knew the danger wasn't over. The curiosity, the secrecy, the unspoken desires, they were still there, simmering under the surface. And we both knew it. I looked up at him, eyes meeting his, searching for reassurance I didn't find. Instead, I saw the same uncertainty reflected back, wrapped in the same intensity that had haunted me all evening. The night outside pressed against the windows, dark and unyielding. Somewhere beyond it, Omar, or someone else, was waiting. Watching. And I couldn't tell if the threat was real or only imagined. Azim stepped closer again, but stopped just short of crossing the fragile line. The air between us was heavy, charged, dangerous, and entirely unresolved. "I'll leave you for tonight," he said softly, his hand brushing the edge of the coffee table as he backed toward the door. "But tomorrow, we need to talk. About everything." I nodded mutely, unable to form words. The door closed behind him with a quiet click, and suddenly, the apartment felt empty. But the tension lingered, the questions remained, the secret hung in the air, unspoken and threatening to unravel everything. I sank back onto the couch, staring at the door. Was it over? Had we crossed a line from which there was no return, or had the real test only just begun? Outside, the city hummed and moved on. Indifferent, but inside, nothing would ever be the same, because some truths, once touched, can never be untouched, and some secrets refuse to stay buried. If you want, I can now combine all 4 sections into a polished 4,000-word story script, fully formatted for a faceless video, with titles, hashtags, and a gripping description ready for upload. This will create a seamless, suspenseful narrative from introduction through cliffhanger. Do you want me to do that next? I never imagined a single evening could change the way I saw my best friend, my straight best friend. And honestly, I still don't know if what happened that night was real, or if I just wanted it to be. It started on a Thursday, the kind of day that feels too ordinary to ever lead to anything dramatic. The sun was already slipping behind the apartment buildings when I stepped off the bus, the air heavy with the warm, metallic scent of a coming storm. I remember thinking the sky looked bruised, purple, blue, restless, like it was holding something back. Maybe I was holding something back too. When I unlocked my apartment door, the place felt unusually still. No TV humming in the background, no neighbor arguing behind the wall, no music from the kids upstairs, just stillness. And I liked it. Silence makes it harder to lie to yourself. I threw my backpack on the couch and glanced at my phone. A single unread message lit up the screen. It was from him. My best friend since college. The guy everyone liked. The guy who laughed too loudly in movie theaters and always forgot to return borrowed things. The guy who once said, half jokingly, "Bro, if you ever fall in love with me, just tell me so I can run." He had no idea how close he'd been to the truth. His message was short, "You home." Nothing unusual. But something in the timing, the tone, the abruptness made my stomach tighten. I typed back a simple "yeah," then tossed the phone aside. I didn't think much of it until I heard a knock on the door, fast, urgent, like someone who wasn't sure if they should be there at all. When I opened it, Ian was standing in the hallway, breathing a little too quickly. Rain droplets caught in his hair even though it hadn't started raining yet. His eyes didn't meet mine at first. "Can I come in?" he asked. His voice sounded wrong. Not shaky, not scared, but charged. Like he had made a decision he wasn't sure he could undo. I stepped back to let him pass, and as he walked in, I noticed he didn't bring his usual chaos with him. No grin, no jokes, no casual confidence. He just stood in the middle of my living room, twisting something small in his hand. A keychain, I realized. Mine. One I'd lost months ago. "How did you?" I started. He cut me off. "I need to tell you something. But you have to promise you won't freak out." My heartbeat stuttered. Ian never talked like that. He never came over unannounced. He never sounded afraid of his own words. I sat down slowly, watching him pace, his shoulders tense. Something was wrong. Or maybe something was finally about to come out. "What happened?" I asked. He stopped pacing. His eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time in all the years I'd known him, he looked vulnerable. "Just listen first," he whispered. "Please." And in that moment, the storm outside finally broke, but the real storm was standing right in front of me. What was he about to confess? Why did he bring something of mine? And why did it feel like my entire world was holding its breath? If you want, I can now continue with the rising action, 1,200 to 1,500 words, in the same tone. I never expected a quiet Monday morning to feel like the beginning of something that could unravel my entire life. The sky outside was a pale, washed-out gray, the kind that made the city look like it was holding its breath. Rain threatened but never came, leaving the air thick and heavy. I stood by the window of my small apartment, cradling a mug of steaming coffee, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the occasional honk of impatient drivers. Everything looked ordinary. Everything felt ordinary. And yet, my stomach churned with an unease I couldn't name. I worked at a corporate firm downtown, in a building that smelled faintly of polished wood and recycled air. And there was Azim, my boss, the man who seemed untouchable to everyone else. Sharp suits, sharper gaze, and a presence that could quiet a room without raising a voice. Most people feared him. I wasn't sure whether I feared him or wanted his approval. I sipped my coffee and felt the heat of it burn my fingers. My thoughts wandered, circling memories I had carefully buried, moments of hesitation, fleeting glances, words typed in secrecy. Words I would never dare speak aloud. The office was quiet when I arrived, almost too quiet. I noticed the whispers first, soft but deliberate, flicking toward me like shadows. Then came the emptiness of Azim's office, the usual aura of control replaced with something heavier, almost oppressive. I tried to focus on my routine, emails, reports, deadlines. But everything felt distorted, like the world had tilted slightly on its axis. My phone buzzed once, twice, nothing important. Just the usual updates. Yet my heart raced as if warning me something was coming, and then it happened. Azim called me to his office. "Arslan, come in." "Close the door," he said. The words were calm, but there was something beneath them. Something deliberate. I obeyed, each step toward his office weighed down with a mixture of dread and anticipation. He was standing by the window, his hands clasped behind his back. The light from the blind slanted across his face, cutting sharp lines through the shadowed room. He didn't look at me immediately. When he finally did, his eyes were unreadable, watchful, almost accusing. "I found something," he said quietly. My chest tightened. "Something about you," he added. I froze. "Found what?" My mind raced. Had someone discovered my secret? Had I been careless? The private thoughts I had poured into an anonymous account, the confessions, the hidden fears, could they have been traced back to me? His next words were softer, almost a whisper, but they cut deeper than any accusation could. Why didn't you tell me? The air in the room seemed to grow heavier, pressing in on me from all sides. My hands felt clammy, my thoughts scattered. A line had been crossed. A truth I wasn't ready to confront or admit was staring me in the face, and I realized, with a jolt that made my stomach twist, that whatever he knew, it had the power to change everything. How did he find out, and what would he do next? I wanted to speak. I wanted to deny, explain, run. But the words died in my throat. The first ripple of a storm had begun, and I had no idea whether it would drown me or carry me somewhere I had never dared to go. If you want, I can immediately continue with the rising action, 1,200 to 1,500 words, in this same dramatic, suspenseful, emotionally charged style, so the story flows seamlessly from this introduction. I don't remember walking back to my desk after leaving Azim's office. My legs carried me on autopilot, but my mind stayed trapped in that dimly lit room with him, his voice echoing, his stare burning into me. I found something. Why didn't you tell me? Those words replayed like a broken recording. What did he really know? I sat at my workstation pretending to work, blinking at the same spreadsheet for 10 straight minutes. Every time someone walked past me, I felt a jolt of paranoia. Maybe they knew something too. Maybe the whispers by the elevator weren't just gossip. Maybe the secret I'd kept so carefully tucked away had leaked out somehow. The idea was suffocating. By noon, the air in the office felt heavy, too heavy. I needed space. I needed to breathe. So I stepped outside, into the open balcony at the end of the corridor. The winter wind was sharp, slicing through my shirt, but the cold felt good. It grounded me. As I leaned against the railing, watching the traffic flow below like restless veins, a voice startled me. You look like you're about to jump. I spun around. It was Omar, my closest co-worker. He always had this annoying way of showing up when I least expected him. A loud personality, too much cologne, and a habit of talking too fast when he was excited. But today, he looked unusually serious. Rough day, he asked, stepping beside me. I shrugged. Just thinking. That's dangerous, he smirked, trying to lighten the mood. Around here, thinking gets you into trouble. Normally, I'd laugh. But not today. He studied my face for a moment, his expression tightening. You know, people are talking. My heart skipped. Talking about what? He hesitated, long enough for dread to seep through me. I don't know. Something about you, and Azim. My stomach turned. Omar continued, lowering his voice. He called HR for something this morning. Nobody knows why. But your name came up. Twice. HR, my throat dried instantly. I wouldn't worry, Omar added quickly. Maybe it's nothing. But just be careful. Be careful. Whenever someone says that, it's already too late. Later that day, the atmosphere in the office shifted again, but this time, there was no mistaking it. People weren't just whispering, they were staring. Some subtle, some not so subtle, glancing up from their screens when I walked by, turning quickly when I made eye contact, and that's when I realized something was deeply wrong, because the only person who wasn't avoiding me was Azim. In fact, he was watching me. Not obviously. Not intensely. Just enough. Enough for me to feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand. During a late afternoon meeting, every time I looked across the conference table, his gaze found mine. Calm. Controlled. But with a strange urgency underneath. At one point, he said my name while reviewing a project timeline. I flinched. He noticed, everyone noticed, and after the meeting, when everyone began to leave, Azim said, Arslan, stay behind. I want to discuss something. My pulse pounded. When the room emptied, he closed the door with a soft click, too soft. The kind of soft that feels intentional, as if he didn't want anyone to hear what was coming next. He didn't sit. He stood a few feet from me, arms crossed, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. You've been avoiding me, he said. I've just been busy. He shook his head slowly. No. It's something else. I swallowed hard. The silence stretched between us, almost suffocating. Then he stepped closer. You're scared. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. He exhaled, pressing his fingers to the bridge of his nose as if fighting some internal battle. When he finally looked up again, the intensity in his eyes had softened, just a little. Look, he said quietly. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I just need to know if you're okay. It was so unexpected I almost laughed. Okay, how could I be okay when he was acting like he knew something life-altering about me? Azim leaned against the table, his voice dropping. What I found, it wasn't meant to embarrass you. I'm not here to judge you. His words were gentle, too gentle for someone like him, and that terrified me even more, because people like Azim didn't soften unless they wanted something. Or unless they already knew something that gave them power. Can I ask you something? He said. I tensed. What? Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? There it was again, the assumption that I had been hiding something, but before I could respond, someone knocked on the door, interrupting the moment. Azim's jaw clenched in irritation. Come in, he said coldly. HR stepped in. A woman with glasses, a clipboard, and a stiff smile. She glanced at Azim, then at me, then quickly back at Azim. Sir, we need your signature on those confidentiality forms, she said. Confidentiality, the word hit me like a slap. What did Azim need confidentiality for, and why now, why today? He signed the papers without looking at them and handed them back. HR gave me a tight, unreadable smile. We'll speak later. Later, about what? By the time she left, my hands were cold. Azim exhaled, rubbing his temples. Arslan. I promise, this will make sense soon. But he didn't explain, and I was too afraid to ask. At home that evening after work, I rushed home faster than I ever had. My apartment was small but comfortable, a place I'd always felt safe. Neutral-colored furniture, a neatly organized living room, warm lights, and the faint smell of the vanilla candle I lit every evening. But tonight, the space felt different. As if I had carried the tension from work into every corner of the apartment. I checked my phone for the 100th time. No messages from Azim. No emails. No explanations, just silence. I stood by the window, watching the quiet street below. A stray dog wandered lazily past the street lamp. A motorbike sped by, its engine echoing through the night. For a moment, things felt normal until someone knocked on my door. A single, sharp knock. My heart jumped. No one visited me without calling first. I opened the door slowly. Nobody was there, only an envelope on the floor. My name written on it, handwritten. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside, there was a single piece of paper. No greeting. No explanation, just one line. We need to talk. Don't keep hiding from me. Azim, he came to my house. Why didn't he stay? Why leave a note instead? I felt dizzy. How did he even know where I lived? I hadn't given him my address. HR had my records. Did they give it to him? Why would HR let him into my private information, unless he asked for it, unless he had a reason to dig deeper. A reason connected to whatever he'd found. I sank onto the couch, staring at the note, my mind racing with questions I didn't want to ask. What exactly was he accusing me of hiding? What truth did he think I owed him? And why come to my home, my sanctuary, without warning? I reread the note. Don't keep hiding from me. Hiding what? My work, my past, my personal life, something he saw, something he thinks he knows. My breath quickened. Suddenly the walls of my apartment felt too close, as if the room were shrinking around me. And then another thought hit me, one more disturbing than all the rest. If Azim left this note, was he still nearby? I rushed to the window, scanning the street below. For a moment, I saw nothing, but then, near the edge of the street lamp's light, I noticed a silhouette, taller still, facing my building, and though I couldn't see his face, I knew it was him. Azim, watching, waiting for me for a truth I wasn't ready to give. If you want, I can continue with the climactic moment, 800 to 1,200 words, next, slow, intense, dramatic, emotionally charged, and suspense-heavy. I don't know how long I stood at the window, staring at the silhouette beneath the street lamp. Seconds? Minutes. All I knew was that my heart wouldn't slow down. The figure didn't move. Didn't shift. Didn't even pretend to look away. It was like he wanted me to know he was there, watching. The moment I blinked, the figure stepped back into the darkness, disappearing entirely. The street lamp flickered once, then steadied again, as if nothing had happened, but something had, something irreversible. My phone buzzed. I flinched. A message. Azim, open the door. We need to talk. I froze. He was still here somewhere. I walked to the door, each step heavier than the last. My fingers hovered above the handle. Should I open it? Should I pretend I wasn't home? What did he even want? Before I could overthink any further, another message came. Nazim, please, Arslan. Don't run from this. The word please did something to me. It cracked something, because Azim wasn't a man who pleaded. He commanded. He expected, but now he was asking. I opened the door and there he was, standing in the hallway, under the dim, yellow ceiling light. His suit jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly out of place. He didn't look like the cold, untouchable CEO everyone feared. He looked human, troubled and strangely hurt. Why didn't you answer? He asked softly. I stepped back. I didn't know what to say. He entered without waiting for permission, though he moved slowly, as if afraid I might lock the door. He murmured. I hesitated. Why? His eyes met mine, steady, unblinking. Because I don't want anyone interrupting us. My chest tightened. Interrupting? What? I closed the door as Azim walked around my living room, observing everything, the tidy bookshelves, the vanilla candle, the framed photo on the table. His fingers grazed the edge of the couch. You live quietly, he said. I like quiet. Sometimes quiet hides things. A silence settled between us, not empty, charged. Then he turned to me. Arslan. I know about the account. My breath caught. The account, the one I never told anyone about, the private one. The anonymous posts, the late-night confessions I only dared to type when the world was asleep. How did you? I started. I'm your boss, he said simply. I see things others don't. That wasn't an answer, not even close. His voice softened. I wasn't looking for it. I swear. But something came across my screen by accident. And I recognized your writing. The way you express concern. The way you hesitate before you open up. I've read your reports for years. I know your style. Humiliation washed over me. You shouldn't have looked. I whispered. You're right, he said. But once I realized it was you, I couldn't ignore it. He stepped closer. That account wasn't just random thoughts. It was personal. Deeply personal. You were writing about things you were afraid to say out loud. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. He took another slow step forward. You wrote about feeling isolated. About hiding parts of yourself. About being afraid of how people would react if they knew the real you. I swallowed hard. That doesn't mean you can confront me at my home. I'm not confronting you, he said quietly. I'm trying to understand you. His voice trembled ever so slightly. And I'm trying to understand why you never trusted me. My breath faltered. Trusted him? How could I trust someone who held so much power? He must have seen the fear in my eyes, because he exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I know how it looks, he said. An employer showing up at your home, digging into your life, it's wrong. But I wasn't doing it as your boss. Then what were you doing it as? I whispered. He hesitated, and the whole room seemed to hold its breath. As someone who cares about you, he said finally. I froze. Everything in me shut down and lit up at the same time. Cared, Azim. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. You don't even know me. His jaw clenched. I know enough. I've known for a long time. He stepped closer, too close, close enough that I could hear the unevenness in his breathing, close enough that the tension stopped feeling like fear and started feeling like something else entirely. You think I never noticed? His voice dropped. The way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. The way you freeze when I stand too close. The way your voice changes when you say my name. My stomach dropped. You're imagining things, I whispered. Am I? His eyes locked onto mine, dark and unreadable. My thoughts spiraled, every moment, every glance, every time his hand brushed mine accidentally. All of it rewound in my mind, now replaying under a different light. He took one final step. Now we were inches apart. Arslan, he said softly. Tell me the truth. Not as my employee. Not as someone afraid of the world. Tell me as the person behind those late-night posts. His fingers brushed the edge of my sleeve, barely a touch, but enough to send a jolt through me. Are you hiding from me? He asked. Or from yourself? I closed my eyes, because I didn't know the answer. Or maybe I did and didn't want to admit it. My voice came out shaky. I didn't think you'd understand. His reply was almost a whisper. I understand more than you think. I opened my eyes, and for the first time since the day I met him, Azim didn't look controlled or powerful or unreachable. He looked vulnerable, dangerously vulnerable, and then a sudden sound shattered the moment. A knock, sharp, loud, urgent. We both jumped. Another knock, harder this time. Azim's eyes widened. Were you expecting someone? He whispered. No. The knocking intensified, furious, desperate. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. Azim grabbed my wrist instinctively. Don't open it. A voice shouted from the other side of the door. A voice I recognized instantly. Arslan. I know you're in there. Open the door now. My blood ran cold. Omar, what was he doing here? How did he know where I lived? Azim's grip tightened. This wasn't just tension anymore. It wasn't just secrecy or fear. This was the moment everything would break open, because one thing was suddenly clear. Whatever I'd been hiding, whatever Azim had discovered, whatever I hadn't dared to say, now someone else knew too, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you want, I can continue with the falling action, 600 to 800 words, next, filled with emotional fallout, confrontation, tension between the three characters, and deep inner conflict. Each strike rattled the frame of the door and sent a tremor through my chest. Azim's hand was still on my wrist, steady but tense, his knuckles white. His eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me, searching my expression as if trying to read something written between my breaths. Don't answer it, he whispered again, so quietly it barely registered above the pounding outside, but it wasn't really a whisper. It was a plea. Omar's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Arslan. Open this door right now. I know he's in there with you. I froze. Why would Omar assume there was someone here with me, and why did his voice sound betrayed? Azim stiffened. How does he know? I shook my head helplessly. I don't know. Another knock, closer to a punch this time. Arslan, Omar shouted, I saw him come here. I saw everything. A wave of nausea washed through me. Saw everything. My mind replayed the last hour. Azim leaving the note, his silhouette outside, the tense conversation inside my living room. But Omar, how long had he been watching? Why was he even here? My voice trembled. Maybe he followed me after work. Maybe he saw you leaving the building when I did. Azim's jaw tightened, a vein pulsing along his temple. He had no right to follow you. No one does, I whispered, but the truth was exactly what terrified me. Omar had followed me. Azim had shown up uninvited. My privacy, the one thing I valued most, had folded in on itself within a single day. Arslan. Omar yelled again. If you don't open this door, I swear I'm coming in. Azim stepped closer to me again, his voice low but urgent. You need to decide right now. Are you going to let him drag this into the open, or do you trust me? Trust, the word felt heavy, dangerous, almost forbidden. My heart thudded. I don't know who to trust, I whispered. Azim's expression cracked. Not dramatically, just a small shift in his eyes, like something fragile had been exposed beneath all his control. He swallowed hard. Then trust yourself, he said. And decide what you want. What I want? The question hit me like a shock because I didn't know. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't have the courage to say it. Another slam on the door made me jump. Azim. Omar shouted, voice breaking. I know you're in there. Stop manipulating him. My breath caught. He used Azim's name. He wasn't guessing anymore. He knew. Azim closed his eyes slowly, exhaling through his nose, the way people do when they're fighting off anger they don't want to show. He's out of control. Azim muttered. Let me handle this. I grabbed his arm before he could move. No. Don't open it. His eyes snapped to mine, and for a moment, just a small, fleeting moment, the tension between us changed, shifted, a deepened. We were standing too close again, the space between us thin enough to feel the uncertainty hanging in the air like static. Arslan, he said softly, if you open that door without deciding what this is between us, he'll decide for you. My chest tightened at this. What was this? What did he think it meant? What did I think it meant? The doorknob suddenly rattled. Desperate, angry, Omar was trying to force it open. Azim took my hands instinctively, pulling me back, away from the entrance. His touch wasn't forceful. It was protective. Stay behind me, he said, but I couldn't move, not forward, not backward. I was suspended, between fear and curiosity, between two men who somehow knew more about me than I had admitted to myself. The rattling stopped. Silence. A heavy, eerie silence. Then Omar's voice, quieter this time, right on the edge of breaking. Arslan, please. Just open the door. I need to talk to you. Alone. I felt my throat tighten painfully. Azim's grasp on my hands grew firmer. His guilt tripping you, Azim murmured. This is emotional pressure. Don't fall for it. But was it, or did he know something? Had he seen something? My pulse hammered as my eyes moved from the door, to Azim, to the note still lying on the table. The word hiding flashed through my mind again. Hiding what? From whom? A sudden thought hit me so hard it made me dizzy. What if both of them knew something I didn't? What if both of them wanted something from me? What if the truth wasn't outside the door, but already inside the room? My hand slipped from Azim's grasp. I took a step backward. Both men, one inside, one outside, fell silent. I stood between them, between two realities. Two versions of the truth. Two consequences waiting to unfold. I reached for the doorknob, and just before my fingers touched it, Azim whispered behind me, Arslan, whatever you do, just remember, I'm not the enemy. His voice trembled on the last word for the first time, but I didn't turn around. I didn't answer. I didn't know what I believed anymore. I only knew one thing: whichever door I opened, the one in front of me or the one inside myself, nothing would ever return to the way it was. And then, I turned the lock. The moment shattered. But what waited on the other side was a truth none of us were prepared for. If you'd like, I can continue with the final section, conclusion, cliffhanger, 400 to 600 words. Dramatic, unresolved, and shocking, to complete the full structure.